How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 2.
Greetings, conversationalists. The second hour of the Eric Erickson Show. I just happen to be Eric Erickson. Remember, if you text Eric, E-R-I-C-K, to 33777, you can get the show notes, the live stream, the podcast. You can follow me around on Instagram. In fact, yesterday I put up pictures of the soundproof room I'm in doing the audio for the book and all that sort of stuff. Now, I want to begin this hour with a particular point to make. Where is Donald Trump? Where is Donald Trump? So, you know, a very, well, it wasn't a long time ago, like 2 years ago or so, remember they memory hold Kamala Harris. She was part of the Biden-Harris administration, and then it was the Biden administration. They've gone back to Biden-Harris administration, but for a time, it was the Biden administration, and Kamala Harris was nowhere to be seen. Supposedly, she was traveling the world on behalf of Joe Biden, but no one knew where in the world she was. When I was a kid, there was a video game, Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego? Now, I was the nerd in charge of the computer lab at my school. We had Apple IIe's and upgraded to the Apple IIgs, my favorite Apple computer of all time. The Apple IIgs was glorious. It had this music app where you could put in notes and it would generate it and I could compose music. It was just cool. I didn't have to have a keyboard or anything, just place notes. I wish I had an app like that today I could play around with. It was so much fun. You could make a trumpet or a saxophone or a piano or whatever, and even they had Carmen Sandiego. Now, for those of you older than me or much younger than me, Carmen Sandiego was a game that came with an atlas, and Carmen Sandiego would go around the world stealing things, and you had to guess where she was. You were Interpol law enforcement trying to track down Carmen Sandiego. Now, ultimately, it became a TV show for kids on PBS, I think. I never watched it. I was much older than that. But it had a catchy song. And we did a song, Where in the World is Kamala Harris, who seemed to have been nowhere. But I'm not talking about Kamala Harris. I'm talking about Donald Trump. Where is Donald Trump? Now, I'm not saying this accusatorily. Don't get me wrong here. It's just remarkable. One of the oldest rules in politics is there's never a reason to attack your enemy when your enemy is pouring gasoline on himself and striking a match. Never shoot your opponent when he's busy shooting himself. And for a very long time, Donald Trump has felt compelled to enter the conversations every time his opponents are shooting themselves, whether to gloat or to laugh or to call more attention to it. And it tends to change the conversation. So a national press corps that for almost now a decade has demanded Donald Trump be silent is suddenly like, where's Donald Trump? I can't believe Donald Trump's not saying anything. Can we get Donald Trump on the record? Donald Trump, you need to say something. Why aren't you saying something, Donald Trump? Where are you, Donald Trump? Are you hiding, Donald Trump? Where are you? What are you doing, Donald Trump? What do you think about this? Why don't you say anything, Donald Trump? Why aren't you attacking Joe Biden so we can attack you? He's not saying anything. And it kind of is remarkable given his tendency and habit. It's like, oh, what is it? Ben Domenech started, I guess, from Twitter, suggested they're going to start throwing goats into the pen to see if there's movement from the velociraptor. It is actually very funny that he's just on a golf course somewhere. Now, he's going to have an event tonight, apparently, with the rollout of the convention. He's getting ready to announce his running mate. We should find out who his running mate is this week. And, of course, the media will use that to change the conversation. But he's not saying anything. He's not causing problems for himself. He's letting the democratic process sort itself out with the Democratic Party. And it's hilarious. They've been begging for him to say something. The media, and again, for almost a decade now, the media has demanded Donald Trump be quiet, that he be taken off social media, that he not to be allowed to speak, that his views be censored, and all of a sudden they're like, please, Donald Trump, say something. Please, we'd like to report on you and not Joe Biden. Please spare us from having to report on Joe Biden and making ourselves look bad for having covered for him for so long. I, my friends, am enjoying watching it. But there's a larger issue here, too. By Donald Trump being on the sidelines, one, it shows you how much of the national press corps is dependent on Donald Trump. So much of the national press corps needs Donald Trump, wants Donald Trump, craves Donald Trump, is desperate for Donald Trump to say or do anything so that they can cover him because he's very good for their ratings. The Washington Post is losing millions of dollars, not just because they become the Hamas Post, propagandists for a terrorist organization, but because Donald Trump is not on the headlines anymore. And since he's not on the headlines, they aren't making nearly as much money as they made, and they're losing money. Jeff Bezos is losing money. They want Donald Trump. Ratings are down for CNN. Ratings are down for all the news networks because Donald Trump is not first and foremost in mind. That's one of the reasons they've started attacking Project 2025. As I mentioned yesterday, Donald Trump has Agenda 47. Now he's got the Republican National Committee platform. He never had anything to do with Project 2025. Sure, people in his orbit did. Sure, these people would go into the White House. Sure, all of that. But it's not his. And if we're really honest, Donald Trump is malleable, puts himself first, and never reveals his hand until he needs to. So there's no way he would do a 900-page policy pronouncement that would bind him because it doesn't serve his interests. It would bind him and would not be malleable. And he wants the flexibility to deny it, which he's now doing. Of course, he had nothing to do with it. And that's why the media and the Democrats are now playing up Project 2025. They got to have something to tie to Donald Trump because they have nothing otherwise. They have nothing otherwise because he's not saying anything. He's not even giving them good leaks about a vice presidential candidate, although that's going to change this week. That's going to change. But the obsession from the media is hilarious. The same people who have covered for Joe Biden for 4 years, who have demanded that Donald Trump not speak, not tweet, not post on Facebook, not put up pictures on Instagram, the same press is suddenly, please, Donald Trump, you're our only hope. Give us something. Say something. We must have something, Donald Trump, please. And he ain't giving it to him, and I don't blame him. The media is forced to cover Joe Biden. They got to. There's no choice otherwise. And the problem for the media, I almost said the Democrats, but you get my point here. The problem for the media is by covering Joe Biden, they're hurting themselves. They're hurting their credibility. As I mentioned yesterday, how is it that the American press corps had the wool pulled over their eyes? No American was duped by Joe Biden. No American was duped by Joe Biden. Every American out there has understood something was not right with Joe Biden. You know, so I mentioned the Wall Street Journal yesterday. I got an alert on my phone. I was sitting in a dive bar last night, and I get an alert on my phone. Democrats worked with a close group of advisors in the Biden administration to hide Joe Biden's aging. They're not going with dementia. They're not going with cognitive decline. They're still going with aging. Y'all, there's something more than aging going on with Joe Biden. And every person who has had a family member who has been diagnosed with dementia or Parkinson's or something can see it. I mean, the Parkinson's discussions in and of themselves, they're feeding off of each other. We'll get to Karine Jean-Pierre in the bad White House press corps moment. I mean, they went after her in the press corps. It was kind of ugly. And she really doesn't have an answer for anything. First of all, she's a bad White House press secretary. Let's just acknowledge, if she were not black and a lesbian, she would not have her job, because she's not good at her job. She's not good at her job, and you know she's not good at her job. And the media has just decided today, Ed O'Keefe in particular, just ate her alive at the White House press briefing, because she's been so bad on the issues of the issues of Joe Biden and visiting doctors, and her mendacity and her conflicting reports of what he's doing, who he's met with, what doctors. It's just been brutal. I mean, did you guys, did you hear any of this? In fact, let me play you some of this now. We can get into more of it later, but this is from that White House press exchange between Ed O'Keefe and Karine Jean-Pierre. He's furious. He feels like he's been lied to.
It's a very basic, direct question.
Wait, hold on, wait a second.
Eight times, or at least once, in regards to the president specifically.
Hold on a second.
Not what you should be able to answer by this point.
Wait, no. No, wait a minute. Ed, please. A little respect here, please. So, every year, around the president's physical examination, he sees a neurologist. That's 3 times, right? So I am telling you that he has seen a neurologist 3 times while he has been in this presidency. That's what I'm saying. I am telling you that he has seen them 3 times. That is what I'm sharing with you, right? So every time he has a physical, he has had to see a neurologist. So that is answering that question.
No, it's not.
No, it is. It is. You're asking me.
Kennard, come to the White House.
But I also said to you,
conditions.
Ed, I also said to you, for security reasons, we cannot share names. We cannot share names.
You can
We have to.
Others he would have met with.
We
but
cannot.
You can share names in regards to if someone came here in regards to the president.
We cannot share names of specialists broadly, from a dermatologist to a neurologist. We cannot share names. There are security reasons. We have to protect.
It's public.
I understand that.
I hear you. It's right there for anyone to see.
Ed, I hear you. I cannot from here confirm any of that because we have to keep their privacy. I think they would appreciate that too. We have to give them.
The doctor.
We have to keep their privacy.
It is
It's
public.
public information.
I hear you.
listed that he went to
And you're going to allow this to
guys,
fester longer, Karine, unless the White House answers the
hold
question.
on a second. There's no reason to go back and forth and be in this aggressive way.
Miffed around here about how information's been shared with the press corps about him.
What do you mean?
We're miffed. We're miffed. Ed O'Keefe isn't from Fox News. He's not from Fox Business. He's from CBS News. And he's furious from CBS News. He's a good reporter. The network itself has been carrying water for Joe Biden. Ed hasn't, and he feels like he's been played by the White House. And what we're learning now is a growing number of Democrats and members of the press actually do feel duped. Some of them were complicit, I'm sure. The New York Times, I'm sure, complicit. Ed O'Keefe, probably shut out and lied to, and he's furious at this point. And Karine Jean-Pierre is just not having it. They are desperate to go back and have you focus on Donald Trump. The White House is. These national people, the New York Times and the like, they're like, what does Donald Trump think? Where is he? They need to talk about Donald Trump because it's not helpful to them to talk about Joe Biden. And Donald Trump isn't giving them what he so often has given them in the past. Attention, comments, sound bites. It's kind of disconcerting. To go back to my buddy Ben Domenech and one of the points he made in all this and throwing the goats in with see what the Velociraptor does. He says, it's like the scene where the Velociraptor has figured out how to open the door in Jurassic Park. Donald Trump has figured out how to be quiet. And the result is the unsettling of the press corps in America, so used to him popping off about everything, and now nothing, they're actually kind of terrified of his silence. And it's actually deeply funny to watch. Welcome back. It is Eric Erickson here. Okay, I've been dying to play this for you. I wanted to play in the first hour, but it just makes sense now. Jake Tapper can get away with this. Now, I would point out that those of us on the right have been doing this for a while. It's kind of a damning indictment and across the Rubicon moment that national mainstream media reporters would now do something like this.
In reality, 72% of voters say that they believe President Biden is too old. That's according to CNN's most recent polling. Voters have been saying this for quite a long time. The reality is that the Democratic elites are mostly late to acknowledge these age and ability issues compared to the rest of the public. The elites have been forced to reckon with it after the debate just 11 days ago.
Look at my career. I've not had many of those nights. It was a
Mika
terrible
and
night,
Joe.
and I really regret it happened. But the fact of the matter is, how can you assure you're going to be on faith that can intervene on your way to go to, work tomorrow? Age wasn't, the idea I'm too old.
The fact of the matter is, how can you assure you're going to be out on your way to go, work tomorrow? Age wasn't, the idea that I'm too old. Keep in mind, that soundbite is supposed to be reassuring to those Democratic supporters who have gone wobbly. Many Democratic officials with whom I've spoken are worried that President Biden and his family and his inner circle appear to be in complete denial, not just about whatever might be wrong with him, but the state of his candidacy right now.
Oh, you're reading verbatim without clarity Joe Biden. Now, keep in mind when he gave the ABC News interview, even ABC News changed his word goodest to best. Even ABC did that. Tapper, not so much. Here's the problem. And again, Jake and I are friends. Not only friends, but we text each other, and he'll text me when he disagrees with me, and I'll text him when I disagree with him. And so I feel comfortable texting him and saying, those of us on the right, we've been doing this for 3 years, and a whole lot of the media has been dismissive of us, pointing this stuff out, falling back on the stutter and speech impediment stuff. I suspect, I don't know, but I suspect he would point out, okay, it was all well and good to hide behind the speech impediment stuff until the moment your brain began to melt down live on television. Now, I got to tell you guys about Hillsdale College and their Declaration of Independence that you can get for free by going to ericforhillsdale.com, ericforhillsdale.com. If you go to ericforhillsdale.com today, you can sign up and get a free copy of the Declaration of Independence and watch a great video on Thomas Jefferson. Hillsdale College has a mission to educate Americans about the country's founding because Hillsdale is committed to the ideals and principles of the founding of the United States of America. All you need to do is go to ericforhillsdale.com today, ERICK, ericforhillsdale.com. You fill out the form, you watch the video, you get your free Declaration of Independence, and you develop a relationship with Hillsdale College, a college committed to the founding principles of this country. They're a great institution that you should know more about. Go to Eric, ERICK, ericforhillsdale.com today. Welcome back. It's Eric Erickson here across the United States. The phone number 877-973-7425. Do not forget, you can text ENGAGE to 33777. You can get tickets to the gathering. It's coming up a month from yesterday, actually, and really the big stuff happens a month from today. A lot of great candidates, a lot of great speakers, a lot of great senators, congressmen, governors, some surprises now in store that I can't talk about, but you're going to want a ticket if you text ENGAGE to 33777. You, my friends, can come to the gathering. I want to talk about something other than politics now, because I'm tired of politics. What I want to talk about is something from Goldman Sachs, the bankers, Goldman Sachs. And what it is a 31-page report about generative artificial intelligence. There's been a lot of buzz about artificial intelligence. People have been concerned about Apple. Apple's got to do more AI. So what are we talking about here? Generative AI in particular. Generative AI is where you tell AI, make me a picture, or write me a column, or tell me a story, things like that. Where I've found generative AI useful is just like if I want a rule explained or something in golf, I can say, explain this rule to me, and it tends to get it right. But increasingly, it's being revealed to have massive amounts of problems where, for example, I saw yesterday somebody did something on adoption policy and homes in the 1960s, and it cited a book and then admitted the book didn't exist. When the person couldn't find the book, the person said, does this book that you cited, talking to the AI, exist? And the AI says, actually, it turns out the book does not exist. It's kind of weird. A lot of employers have thought we can use generative AI, particularly the creation of articles and pictures, to replace humans. And in fact, there have been a lot of people concerned that AI would ultimately wind up replacing humans. You know, the words back in the 1600s, the rise of industrial machines and gears to be able to manufacture more quickly and efficiently products was sweeping Europe. Into the 16 and 1700s, they were figuring out and streamlining with the introduction of steam power and things like that. Machines, and the machines could be run by wind at first, and then ultimately by steam. And the French workers were scared of losing their jobs. They wore wooden shoes called sabots, and they threw the shoes into the gears. At least that's one of the many stories. So they threw their shoes, the sabots, into the gears of the machines to destroy the machines because the French workers were convinced that they would be losing their jobs, hence the word sabotage. I learned that from Star Trek, Episode 6, The Undiscovered Country. Great movie. But it turns out to actually be one of the more presumed stories of where sabotage comes from. They put it in the movie, but it actually is true. But in any event, the workers were concerned, and there's been a growing movement in this country and elsewhere to be concerned about AI. So my buddy David, I've mentioned David on the program. I'll leave his last name out of it so his cell phone doesn't light up except for his closest friends who know I'm talking about him. David is a photographer. I used to think I would want a job like his, except he travels all the time, all over the world. He's been in Greenland. He's been in the Amazon. He's been in Montana and Alaska. He's been down in Florida and Texas. He's a brilliant photographer. In fact, he's photographed for The Gathering. He will this year as well. He shoots for Bass Pro and Cabela, Duckhead. First of all, he's one of the nicest human beings on the planet, but his wife, Stephanie, is way more awesome than him. She's smarter than him. She's nicer than him, more creative than him, more competent than him. I just need that on the record. I need it. Anyone who knows them, make sure I noted that on the record. But David's a great guy, and he's a great photographer. And he's been concerned about the rise of AI because as a photographer, you can go to a computer and say, I want computer, make me a picture depicted this way with these products, and the computer generates it. But what we're finding is that it doesn't quite work out. In animation, in most animations, characters have 4 fingers. They don't have 5. It's hard to draw 5 fingers. Guess what? You get generative AI to generate a picture that looks photorealistic, and they got 4 fingers. They've got a nose that's off. In the background, like I saw a picture that superficially there was something it looked like a real photo, but superficially, but there was something not quite right about it, and you started paying attention to it. And there was a guy in the background, and his hand was on his fist, his elbow was on the table, his hand was resting on his fist, except there was no fist. It was a nub. And then there was a sign that looked like back in the day, Pizza Hut was a place you wanted to go eat. Oh, if they would only bring back the old Pizza Hut. and Pizza Hut, it served Pepsi because it was part of the same company as Pepsi. But in this, it looked like a Pizza Hut, except Pizza Hut had these stained glass, like dome lights over pool tables. Y'all, back in the day, you know what I'm talking about. And it had Pepsi Cola logo, except this one had like the Coca-Cola logo. Except you look at it, and it looked like Coca-Cola, except you realized it didn't say Coca-Cola. It said something. It really didn't say anything. It was like letters strung together in the Coca-Cola font. And it didn't work. And you paid attention, like, this isn't real. And it made these sorts of mistakes. Or you can read articles now online, and they just don't sound like a normal person. In fact, editors are being hired now. Editors, human beings, are being hired to now revise artificially generated work product to make it sound more human. So AI is writing articles, and editors are having to go through and make it sound more human. It's not cracking up to be the way it should be. And yet it's all the hype. Apple's been accused of falling behind, so now it actually has added some usefulness, AI usefulness, to its materials where, for example, you'll be able to ask its dingus. I'm not going to say her name because I don't want to activate your phones, but you know the idiot on your phones that you can talk to who's actually worthless, the worst of them all. She's so dumb. And suddenly she's going to be smart. And you'll be able to get her to do things like not just raise the thermostat, but remember a conversation. What's the thermostat set to? 69 degrees. Please raise it to 72 degrees. What? It won't do that anymore. It'll know we're talking about the air conditioner. Raise it to 72 degrees or whatever. It'll be more useful in what you'll be able to do. Or you'll be able to tell it, find pictures that have my wife in a purple dress. And it'll be able to do stuff like that. That's useful. But by and large, it's not all that useful. Now, I bring all this up because Goldman Sachs has released a report, Gen AI, too much spin, too little benefit. There's a guy on social media. His name is S13. He writes a business newsletter, and he follows tech PR, and he's covering this Goldman Sachs report. And basically, Goldman Sachs, of all groups, is calling BS on generative AI, which I kind of knew we were going to get to. Like, even in the radio industry, there were people thinking, you know what? They're going to be able to duplicate your voice with AI, and the AI will be the talk radio show host. I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's never going to happen. So here's what Goldman Sachs says. It takes a lot of energy and massive costs and generates lots of errors with LLMs. An LLM is a large language model. So essentially what's happening with these generative AI models is they consume mass resources of data, full books, articles, you name it, the internet. And using algorithms trained in how grammar and syntax work and what words mean, they're able to piece together meaning and tone and tenor and derive some level of meaning that sounds like a human has come up with stuff and to get you detailed answers on things. But Goldman Sachs says it's not ultimately all that useful compared to everything else. So it takes leaps of logic to suggest that the large language models will lead to a generative AI with human consciousness, which is something some of them have been worried about. Those replacing human beings with AI are doing so because they have no respect or understanding of labor, commoditizing outputs without seeing that a job is both the acquisition of labor and the outsourcing of risk. You don't just hire humans, you trust them. You don't trust the AI. The most brutal part of the report was from Goldman Sachs head of global equity research, Jim Covello, one of the most technical, well-respected analysts in tech. He thinks that generative AI is full of, poop. And it's nothing like the early days of the internet at all. In fact, he suggests that tech believes, Silicon Valley believes, things start off expensive and get cheaper, and then it's actually revisionist history. The tech world has gotten so complacent in the assumption that AI costs are going to decline substantially over time when actually the energy costs are continuing to go up on it. All of this is to say, every single one of you, I suspect, has heard a massive amount about how AI is going to change the future. I have too. And I haven't quite understood how it's going to change it. I just hear that it is going to change it. I haven't really been convinced that it's going to change it. And here comes Goldman Sachs, and essentially they're agreeing with me. This is, again, reading Ed Zitron in his tweet. On top of generative AI having no killer app, it will barely increase gross domestic product and productivity. And Goldman Sachs reports that to make generative AI grow much further will require a massive rebuild of the American power grid. It just doesn't cut it. They're not wrong. In fact, increasingly, it seems that generative AI is vastly overrated. And now think about this. Think about this. So much of the growth of the Dow right now and the S&P 500 is based on a handful of companies, NVIDIA being one of them, and I'm a shareholder. I only own one share of stock, but I own a share. It's gone up. I bought it at like $400. It's now, well, they split it, but I mean, it's a lot. They split it, so my one share is now 10 shares. It's gone up a lot. But think about all of the stock market increase. It's been really focused on a handful of companies. And as we move down this AI road, and there's more realization that AI isn't actually going to do all of the stuff that people thought it was going to do, there's going to come a reckoning in the stock market on these companies. There's going to come a reckoning in the financial markets overall. There are already predictions about a 10% correction before the election. If more and more investors and analysts move to where Goldman Sachs is, move to where I am, that AI is overrated, there's going to be economic consequences to it as well. AI is so reliant on GPUs, by the way. That's one reason NVIDIA has skyrocketed, because a lot of the compute power doesn't come from a CPU. It comes from a GPU, graphical processing unit. You may not know what a graphical processing unit is. You can call Vision Computers at 404 Compute, and they can explain it to you. They can build you a computer with the graphics processing unit that you need, that fits your demands, your wants for your computer. They build you a computer, and then they service it. Award-winning 5-star service. You call them 15 seconds or less, you get the answer to your question. You may not know where you saved a file. You may not know how to save a file. You may have a question about your email, or you need email support or printer support. Vision Computer takes care of you. 404 Compute or visioncomputers.com. But here's the thing. Vision Computer not just can build your computers and service your computers, but if you have a computer from somewhere else, but you need tech support, and you don't want to have to lug it in all the time when you need tech support, and you don't want to pay those people to come to you, you can pay Vision Computer a small annual fee, $179 a year, and they will be your tech support, and you will get a special number, and in 15 seconds or less, you'll get the answer to your question. In many cases, if you have a real problem with your computer, they can remote in and take care of it. And keep in mind, this is for those of you who didn't buy from Vision. If you bought from Vision, it comes with the computer. But if you need it, you don't have a computer from Vision, but you need their support, they'll do it for just $179 a year. They handle all of your questions. In 15 seconds or less, you get the answer. There's no phone, wait, hold, hell, and all that sort of stuff. So give them a call today at 404-COMPUTE. Tell them I sent you. You're going to save even more money. 404-COMPUTE or visioncomputers.com. Have you noticed, welcome back, by the way, have you noticed that the Democrats, they're pretty furious at Republicans for pointing out Kamala Harris as a DEI vice president. Jasmine Crockett was on with, what's her name, the Joy Reid on MSNBC.
Let's go outside of the Democratic caucus and talk a little bit about, because I think people are assuming that, let's say it was Vice President Kamala Harris. I think lots of people would be very excited in theory to have Kamala Harris as a candidate. But here is the reception she would receive. She's already receiving it from some rando writers in the New York Post, but also from a member on the other side. Here's Chip Roy of Texas, the guy who was in favor of bringing back lynching and who admitted that he only nominated Byron Donalds to be Speaker because he was black, and the Democrats had nominated Hakeem Jeffries. Just want to set for my audience up to remind y'all who he is. Here he is talking about the Vice President of the United States.
At the end of the day, I don't think they'll go there. I don't think they can. They're in a box. They are in a box where they've got to choose between a mentally incompetent president and a DEI vice president, and they know that they're going to be facing a problem either way.
Now, I know that you all want to read a loser when a loser says a thing, so I'm just going to let you comment on what you think about those words.
again, you know what? I want people to listen to them. If you just listen to what they say, it will tell you everything that you need to know. Number one, you can obviously see that he's ignorant as all get out. And number two, you can see that he wishes he had half the competency of Vice President Kamala Harris.
Okay, first of all, total mischaracterization of Chip, and that's what you get from Joy Reid. She's dishonest and lies. But two, Joe Biden literally told people he was going to pick a black woman to be his vice presidential candidate. Now, in fairness, this actually gets to older constituency issues that have existed in the Democratic Party before the rise of diversity, equity, inclusion. But let's get to the point that she actually was picked because she's a black female. She was not picked for competence. She was not picked for credibility. If anything, maybe she was picked because she's so terrible that people would not want to do the 25th Amendment. But she was actually picked because she's a black female. And we use DEI parlance for that sort of stuff today. She was picked because of a quota system. She was picked because they wanted her for her gender and the color of her skin. And Biden admitted it at the time. Democrats admitted it at the time. The fact that they're that defensive about it right now tells you why Kamala Harris is such a problem. Because the whole reason she's there is because of her gender and skin color, not her accomplishments. And they know it, which is why they're really scared of Biden stepping aside for her.